Welcome into Flag for Discussion, episode 82 for Tuesday, June 9th. My name is Farbod Merkazi, here as always with Jace Hatfield. We are recording one day late, and I mean, it's not either of our faults. We both have a big weekend coming up this weekend, and we were planning on using this past weekend to really prepare. But thankfully we did, because Jace, today a bombshell dropped in the college football world. We already saw Logan on Twitter asking us for an emergency pod. Logan, luckily for you, this isn't an emergency pod. It's just this week's pod. So we will be reacting to the Brendan Sorsby conversation, and we want to also have a little fun if tensions aren't too high in the middle of this podcast. So we'll put Jace through a game of this or that, a little keep three, cut three kind of game. Jace, how are we doing on this fine Monday evening?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited for your wedding this weekend. I'm excited to be in the sun of San Diego. I've never been to San Diego. My one non-wedding related activity I know I need to do is get some version of Mexican food while I'm there. One of my favorite cuisines. I've always heard great things about San Diego Mexican food scene. I got to try something when I'm there.
Well, we'll try to get you something there. I will say the only bit of like downtown San Diego you'll see is probably when you're landing and leaving the airport, because the wedding's a little further out, but the San Diego area is the closest airport to it. But you'll be close, so you can definitely
Sunday night. So I think
you can
Sunday.
definitely get absolutely. You can definitely do things. I mean, we might do some stuff Thursday night. Who knows? But you'll be taking in the nice, I guess, summer. I forgot what month we're in. California weather, but it's gonna be a great weekend. I guess I should have mentioned it's my wedding weekend. That's why we were late, not just because we have a fun weekend lined up. All right. Before we get started, make sure you are following us on Twitter at F4Discussion, TikTok at Flag 4 Discussion. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at Flag for Discussion spelled out. YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to us at Flag for Discussion spelled out. Did I forget anything? Did I forget a platform? I think that was all of them.
I think you hit it all.
All right, Jace. So today, around, 9 or 10 a.m. my time, around midday for you, Brendan Sorsby was granted an injunction by the NCAA. He is now eligible to play. So backstory on Brendan Sorsby, we haven't really talked about him on this podcast since I had that solo show when the initial news of his going to gambling GA came out, the issue itself with it. And I was just reacting to Texas Tech bringing him in and other programs knowing about the issue, not reporting it. But since that time, we haven't really talked about it because we wanted to get some resolution. Last Friday, it was made clear that the NCAA wasn't going to deny their appeal. It was going to deny Brendan Sorsby's appeal to play college football this coming year. So magically, Monday morning, Brendan Sorsby has been granted an injunction by a Lubbock area Lubbock area judge to play in this coming college football season. Now, I know what you guys might be thinking. That's just home cooking. This is like the Trinidad Chambliss thing where it's a Ole Miss grad as the judge, and he's like currying favor to the player. Now, this, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, the first judge that was assigned to Brendan Sorsby's case was a Texas Tech alum, and he recused himself from the case. They brought in Ken Curry, who's a Houston alum, retired judge, but brought him in to oversee this case. And part of the ruling that happened today, Ken Curry said the NCAA can't prevent him from practicing, playing, or otherwise participating in Texas Tech's football team for this season. The ruling also stated that Sorsby demonstrated that he will suffer probable imminent and irreparable injury if this court doesn't issue the temporary injunction, because he will be unable to participate on the football team this year. But the other interesting part of what Judge Ken Curry did is he dished out his own punishment. He dished out 2-game suspension for Brendan Sorsby. That means he's going to be suspended for the Texas Tech's opener against Abilene Christian. Then he's going to be suspended against Oregon State, and he's going to be coming back in their Big 12 opener against Houston. So once again, the judge is technically not currying favor because he's a Houston alum. So he's allowing Brendan Sorsby to make his season debut and Texas Tech debut against his alma mater. Bottom line, there's a lot of different people, a lot of different quotes I want to go down. So excuse me as I keep talking. Brendan Sorsby's attorney, Jeffrey Kessler, said this is just a result. Brennan gets to devote himself to his team and the education of athletes on the dangers of gambling addiction. He will continue his treatment, miss 2 games, and there is no injury to the competitive integrity of the NCAA. It is what we proposed and what the NCAA should have accepted had it been true to its promises to prioritize the welfare of athletes. Well, in the time since this news even came out, my friend Jace, news. Pete Thamel, Big Ten officials are expected to discuss in the coming days a league-wide mandate to not play Texas Tech in any sports per 3 Big Ten sources. This is in the wake of Nebraska AD Troy Dannon informing his staff that they aren't allowed to schedule Texas Tech. What did Troy Dannon say, you might ask? He sent out a department-wide text memo saying, I want to reach out and let you know that we will not schedule any contest versus Texas Tech in any sport. If you currently have a future contest already scheduled, please connect with Troy immediately. Georgia's AD also came out and said they're not going to be doing that. Josh Brooks, Georgia AD, tweeted, true integrity means holding your program accountable when things go wrong, not buying custom legislation or running to a local courtroom to bypass the rules. Scott Van Pelt, ESPN, said there really aren't any rules. You just go to a court, it fails. Go to a court again until a judge says you're all set. Want a 7th year? Sure. Broken rules? It's fine. There aren't any rules. I can keep going on and on. The Utah AD had a statement. Everyone in college football has had a statement. And mind you, you and I, Jace, and thank you for allowing me to go through all of that. You and I, Jace, have been accustomed to a college football that when bad things happen or there's scandal or there's something people don't agree with, there's still like 40% of the people who agree with the side that like agree with it, right? In this case, it feels like outside of Lubbock, Texas, outside of Texas Tech fans, everybody's vehemently against it.
Yeah, it's one of the few times that even all the commissioners have agreed on the same principle. Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, has come out and expressed his concern for the integrity of the sport. As you just mentioned, the Big Ten commissioner has. Even the Big 12 AD and the other Big 12 ADs have come out and they've also agreed. So this is like the first time we've really seen every conference. I believe the Florida AD had some words to say, where every conference came together and had pretty much the same stance on what's going on here. And I think your immediate reaction to me was the integrity of the sport. That was my immediate thoughts. It was kind of the immediate verbiage that a lot of these ADs and commissioners have come out with. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. Exactly. Yeah. Integrity of the sport is why we care. It's why you're a passionate fan. And it's also why a lot of us don't watch the WE, or why it doesn't have the same level of respect as a sport that these other ones do. It's because it's rigged, it's fixed, it's fake. It's an entertainment platform, not a sport, not a game, not an event in the way that football is, college football specifically. If you remember back in 1919, I believe, fact check me on that one.
Good year.
Chicago White Sox a bunch of players took bribes to purposely lose the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds. And that was arguably one of the worst scandals in baseball history, one of a few that they've had. But who's to say professional athletes, grown men, made the decision to take that loss for money? At what point does that not happen in college football? At what point do people think of every football game you watch, Kalshi ad, Polymarket ad, DraftKings ad, FanDuel ad, ESPN bet, every book you can ever imagine you'll see ads for. You're telling me that these kids who, as we've seen with Sorsby and as he's talked about it, how easily influenced they are by the betting world. At this point, the kids coming to college football have grown up with sports betting. It's been something that's been a part of their lives at this point for the majority. It's just so hard to believe that now that it's legal to sports bet on your own team as a player, it's hard to believe that every single Division I collegiate athlete is going to abide by a moral code, an unspoken rule that we're not going to bet. I don't know if that's going to happen. Even when it was illegal, we had guys doing it. What happens when it's now legalized? Kids know they might not get punished for it. They know if they do, they can go to the court a few times, wait till they get a favorable judge, maybe or maybe
Yeah.
not, get in the pockets of the judge. And here we are. Now we have games running rampant. We have guys losing games on purpose. Then once the integrity of sport's ruined, it becomes a WWE. It's no longer a sport that we love.
So one thing one thing I'll say before I respond, I want to make it clear, Jace and I aren't anti-gambling, anti like sports gambling. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, sports gambling becoming legalized has made the proliferation of gambling actually safer. There's a reason they caught Brendan Sorsby. If this was all under the books, it would be either take it much longer or much easier to hide. Since he did it all on legal betting sites, those eventually became tracked, and that's how the University of Cincinnati was alerted. That's how the NCAA was alerted of this case. So all of that is there. So I'm not anti-gambling. I think it genuinely we do point spreads. We make picks every week during the season on this show. We talk about odds to win the conference, odds to win the Heisman. We talk gambling a lot on this show because it genuinely it makes your interest and fandom of a sport it's a compliment to it. But with that said, there is one thing that every sport relies on, and you mentioned it. It's integrity. And for me, I'm not your WWE example is perfect. I'm not gonna be as interested in something that I know there's a scripted outcome. And people want to come out here all the time and be like, "Oh, the Chiefs get all the calls." They might get some favorable calls from here on out, but that game's not scripted. Like the people think like, "Oh, Scott Foster reffing an NBA game." Like we make jokes that he's the extender because he's developed that reputation. Or remember when Scott Foster and Chris Paul had this thing where like he was very unfavorable to Chris Paul, but those games and those moments aren't like you at least as a fan go into it and be like, we're watching the best players at their sport compete at the highest level at their sport, and one of them's going to win out, one of them's going to get a base hit, one of them's going to make a tackle, or one of them's going to break the tackle. Well, something's going to happen because that's going to lead to, just through like the spirit of competitiveness, to beautiful things happening, keeping you interested in the sport. What Brendan Sorsby's what got in trouble for wasn't gambling. It was gambling on his own team. And for me, today's ruling was the final death nail. Actually, not the final. It was the clearest death nail in my mind that the NCAA is no more. Because we've talked about all these decisions and all the things that we haven't liked about the NCAA's decision making or lack thereof. We've talked about the calendar being messed up. We've talked about why are there two transfer portal cycles. We've talked about the Ole Miss tampering with the kid who was at Clemson. We've talked about all of that, but we've also like treated those as, man, this is a problem. But in the back of your mind, you're like, it's not going to ruin the integrity of the sport. It's not going to mess up what happens this weekend. As you just hope there's some sort of ruling that comes down onto it. But now looking at this, the NCAA made a ruling, came down with its conviction, and the player still went to court and was able to dance around it. For me, that's just the clearest like example of the NCAA's powers are no more. It's time to collectively bargain. Look at Calvin Ridley. I know he's a name that's brought up a lot. NFL, he was gambling on his own team when he was injured, and it was within the collective bargaining agreement that his players union signed. There were anti-gambling rules in there. So if Calvin Ridley wanted to pull a Brendan Sorsby and go to court, you know what the court would say? Bro, your union agreed. These are the rules. I can't like say there's irreparable harm or damages. That is like a collectively bargained agreement that your union had. Look at Jonte Porter. Jonte Porter and NBA. He's not a really well-known guy, but look at what he has. He can never play in the NBA again because his union had agreed to anti-gambling laws and he broke those rules. That's a collectively bargained sport. It's gone. Every sport, whether it's MLB, NFL, college, not college football, MLB, NFL, like the major sports, NBA, the thing that they are most scared of is not, and take this with a grain of salt, is not one of their players committing an act of murder. Like take any law breaking country, statewide, federal, whatever laws breaking those laws out of this scenario. What they are scared of is that their integrity of the sport is doubted. And college football is allowing that to take place. And one final thing. I don't feel for Brendan Sorsby in this scenario, but I also feel in a way where, let's say Texas Tech is up by is down by, actually Ari from Andy and Ari had this better example. Let's say Texas Tech is on 3rd and 10 at the opponent's 20-yard line, down 4, and Brennan Sorsby is a wide open receiver. He sails it 20 yards over his head. What's everyone going to say about that? He's fixing it. He's still gambling. And it could be completely unfair to a man who, yes, one side of this argument, the side that we're mostly arguing right now, we don't like. But this is also a man who is going to GA. He is still going to go through recovery, trying to make himself a better person from the gambling. But he's also going to be going through, like, and Texas Tech is going to be trolled by it too. Like, oh man, they're gambling. They're not in it to actually win it. They're in it to make money. And I think what the Georgia AD had to say is, instead of running to your local courthouse, instead of running to look for favorable legislation, you take accountability in your athletic department.
It's up to you as an athletic department to enforce these kinds of rules. And Sonny Dykes talked a lot about this. He talked about how the current landscape of college football, and something kind of, we've alluded to before. He says the current landscape of college football has created a world where everyone's concerned for their own job. People get fired so quickly. People can lane kiff and they can accept a job in the middle of a season. You can get fired tomorrow and you're not expecting it. In a world where everyone feels no job security, in a world where everybody feels so much pressure from fans, and I'm not saying this to defend, these people, but everyone's looking out for themselves. Every coach is going to try and do what's best for his team in that season. Every single player is going to do what's going to make them the most money tomorrow. Every AD is going to do whatever it takes to keep their job for one more college sports season. No one's really thinking about the future of the sport or the future of a conference or the health of the sport, or people have lost their meaning of why do people actually love and watch college football. All of that beauty of the sport has been gone. And it's now on, how can I maintain my job tomorrow? And that's part of the arms race that is NIL. That's part of the craziness that is the transfer portal and tampering. That's what's going on here with the betting and the risk that you have with integrity of the sport now. And I want to tie this in with your point, so I really liked it, talking about the NCAA and their powers. Throughout the season, you and I have talked a lot about the NCAA's issues when it comes to TV deals and scheduling. Right now, it feels like the only people that really have power in the playoff and scheduling and the TV deals is ESPN, Fox, Big Ten, SEC. The Big 12 and the ACC kind of get a say if they're not, if the Big Ten and the SEC are nice enough to listen to them, and the NCAA just kind of takes a back seat and lets this all happen. The ESPN doesn't really care what the NCAA wants. They care what they want and what the SEC wants. Fox doesn't really care what the NCAA wants. They just care about what Fox wants and what the Big Ten wants. That was already bad enough. Now your lack of power is extending to punishing players. There's been a few times now they've gone to try and punish players, and they've come out empty-handed. Whether you agree with it or not, the Trinidad scenario, they tried to punish him, tried to say no, goes to local court, now he's playing college football. A bunch of cases similar to that one. And then now you have this one, which is arguably the worst, at least with something like the Trinidad case. There was arguments. Like you said, there was 50-50. There were people that liked it, people that didn't like it. This is 99.9% of college football fans. Anyone that's not a Red Raider hates this. Doesn't matter. The NCAA's thoughts don't matter. He's going to play college football this season, minus the 2 games at the beginning of the year. And you sit here and you have to ask yourself, what power does the NCAA have? They haven't been able to punish teams properly for any cheating or tampering or anything like that. They haven't been able to punish players for betting on their own teams. They have no power in the negotiations of TV deals and the college football season schedule. You're right. At what point do we just collectively bargain? At what point do we just merge
today
into a super league? Exactly. And a big fear of the sport is super league. And this just, to me, screams we're going down the path to a super league. Like I said, the Big Ten and the SEC have all the power, and at what point do they come together and try to figure something out? That'll obviously rope in the Big 12 and the ACC. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying we're waking up with a super league, but those conversations are going to to happen rapidly. How do we get control of what's going on in the sport? I think we just need to create our own league and get our own power. And that's just going to exile the NCAA. And then that's a whole nother mess that we don't need to open up right here, right now.
No, I think when you looked at the TV deal conversation, tampering, when you look at the transfer portal, when you look at NIL not being very easily like there's not a great overseer of NIL. When you look at all of that, and we have complaints about it, and we certainly have fought for changes for each of those spots throughout this podcast, throughout our personal friendship of just talking about this. When you look at those, they now appear to be an illness that a person could have. This not having power to enforce gambling violations feels like a tumor. It feels like a death nail to the NCAA's ability to govern or do anything. So I don't know if it's a super league, but regardless, if you want to play major Division I college football, the NCAA needs to rope them all together and be like, the reason they don't want to collectively bargain is while they might be smarter than you and me, book smart, street smart, whatever, the people who run the NCAA for the most part are very set in their ways of doing it the old fashioned way, the traditional NCAA way. And mind you, they don't want to label these student athletes as employees, not because they don't want to pay, they don't want like teams to pay these players. They already do. They don't want to have employee benefits. They don't want them to have employee rights. They don't want them to have like health insurance and what, you know what I mean? Like that's an expense for the NCAA and its member institutions that they didn't want to do. But if you're the NCAA today and you're looking at the fact that you denied Brendan Sorsby from playing multiple times, and what he did was he found a court, and whether it's true or not, whether Cody Campbell did or not, I don't want to say that they bribed people in the court, but whatever it is, they found a judge willing to give a favorable ruling, and honestly, it shocked everybody. And here's a couple points. I don't want to make Texas Tech fans out to be villains. They're gonna feel like they were like crucified all season. For the most part, I have seen a lot of happy Texas Tech fans, but I have seen some Texas Tech fans saying, I wanted him to play, but I didn't want it to be like this. Like, this is bad for the sport. This is bad for us. And we love Joey McGuire. We were talking about him last week on this show, how much we love Joey McGuire, what he's doing with Texas Tech. This is bad, Joey. This is bad for the sport. I also am looking at it as maybe I'm like looking at it too scared, but we already thought NIL was going to drive coaches out of college football, and it has. If you are running a sport where this could happen, how I'm not even talking about the older coaches like Kirk Ferentz's of the world who just have the easy out to probably retire soon. How many coaches do you think out there are going to be like, well, I'm at the top of my game in the college game, but there is no structure, there is no governing, there is no power, there's no support the NCAA can provide me. So why not go and be the Falcons head coach? Like, how, if you're an Oregon fan, how many more of these type of disappointing decisions by the NCAA can you take before Dan Lanning's like, it might be more worth it for me to go coach, I don't know, like the Steelers, which like at that point, it makes a lot more sense. That's a collectively bargained sport that has, here's an argument that Andy and Ari had today. We've been arguing about so many different things the NCAA has done this offseason. The NFL has argued about the tush push. Like the NFL doesn't argue about its calendar. The NFL doesn't argue about its free agency or the draft. They don't have debates on that. They were talking about the tush push because that's a structured league that's collectively bargained. There's union rules there's collectively bargained rules that the players union and the league association agreed upon. So for me, the NCAA needs to look at collective bargaining today if they want to be around as a governing body from here on out. Overall, I think like there's a lot of feelings I have about this day, Jace. And sometimes I feel like I said, the whole like issues that we've talked about in the past now feel like an illness where this feels like a tumor. I feel like, like in TV shows where like parents talk to their kids and they're like, I thought you could never disappoint me, but today you really did. Like college football, I'm such a believer in college football. I'm such a believer in what it can do for the players and what it can do for fans. There's a reason we're not over super hating Texas Tech fans. They didn't sign up for this, but they still love their team, love to throw their tortillas. Like I understand, like they're the general battle conundrum that they're in, but like I was disappointed sometimes with some of the decisions college football took or didn't take to fix things. But the fact that this happened today makes me extremely disappointed.
I completely agree. Yeah, it's like when if you push your parents' buttons a little too far, and you get the stern look and the "I'm disappointed in you" or "I'm frustrated" or "I'm upset," and it really hurts. And like, man, I pushed it too far. That's what today feels like with the NCAA. I think today is a day that in 5 years, when we're collectively bargaining finally, and there's a super league and it looks all different, this is the day we'll talk about. That was probably there's a lot of things that led up to it, but this is probably the day that progressed it further than any other day that we've seen so far. And I'm going to go back to what Sonny Dykes was talking about with everybody looking out for themselves today, because I want to reiterate something that really is a real facing issue that we could see as soon as this season. There's going to be inevitably a lot of desperate coaches come week 7. There are going to be coaches whose seasons have gone awry, whether it was their fault or it's injuries. One way or another, there are going to be ADs, there are going to be coaches that are struggling on the hot seat. They have to figure something else out quick. I'm not saying they're going to gamble and lose games or whatever, but the way things have gone, how desperate are people going to get, and what are they going to do out of that desperation? You open the door for teams to figure out ways to cheat, figure out ways to steal, figure out ways to monetize losses. You figure out people are going to get desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. And when you prove to desperate people that desperate measures will go mostly unpunished, if you go to the right courts, you go to the right people, you just keep trying. Sonny Dykes is right. Someone will break. Someone will lose their idea of what college football should be. They're going to lose their focus on what's best for the sport. People will get desperate, and desperate people
Yeah.
do desperate things. And that's something we could see as early as this season. It's something that we could see as early as 2 years from now. I'm not entirely sure, but this is kind of the snowball effect of, oh, test the waters, see what you can get away with. It's been happening the last few years. We tested the water with some cheating. We tested the water with some tampering. We've tested the water with some throwing shots back and forth at other coaches and conferences, and everything's gone relatively unpunished. Like I say relatively because there's a 2-game suspension, but I don't think Texas Tech or Brandon Sorsby sweating not playing Abilene Christian, Oregon State. I think they're going to be just fine, and they know that. So you can kind of go through these motions unpunished, and I don't want to keep harping on the idea of integrity and losing it and what that means. I want to try to push the envelope a little further, but it will be really interesting to follow this year the desperate measures that teams may or may not take to try and save jobs and save seasons. And also similar to what you said, everyone's going to be watching everything under a microscope. The second one team gets upset, let's say Florida's having a rough year, they're 3-3, they go and play a bad team, and they lose handedly, they lose by 20 at home. They might have realistically only lost a game due to poor game planning, poor coaching, poor performance, poor execution.
Yeah.
But everyone is going to say, is Florida rigging games? Is Summerall rigging games? Is Phylon rigging games? There's going to be the question marks. Like you said with Texas Tech, anytime Texas Tech has a last second field goal that maybe they need to cover a 3.5 point spread, they could just kick a field goal and end the game. They go for a touchdown and they get it. They might not be cheating, and no one might be betting on that game. Guess what people are going to say? It's the same thing with the judge, right? You said you don't want to call out if they paid the judge or not and why he made the ruling he did. Whether it's true or not, 90% of college football fans are going to say that there was money under the table.
Yeah.
Again, whether it's true or not, that's to be determined. That's not our choice to make, but it's going to
That's what the
be
Georgia
said.
AD said.
Yeah, and if Georgia AD is saying it, you can only imagine what fans and people like you and me are saying. Everything is going to go under a big microscope and a big lens, the way it already is. We already see how many rumors get spread about NIL. Probably 3% of them are true. We see how many rumors get thrown out about tampering. Let's say 10% are true. We're going to have millions of accusations about gambling and cheating throughout the season. There was like a lower level Division 1, maybe it was Division 2 school last year. Wide receiver had a free touchdown running down the sideline to end the game. They were up already, and kind of last minute steps out, or maybe they were down like 14. Last minute steps out of bounds, and everyone's kind of like, could have just scored a free touchdown. And everyone was kind of questioning if it was cheating or not. Never really heard what had happened. Every time that people were finding lower level college football plays and finding ways to make it about cheating, what's going to happen now that this has actually occurred? Every single play at the end of games that go for or against people placing bets is going to be put into the lens of, oh, that's
100%.
cheating. It's going to be a very tiring conversation throughout the entire college football season.
And you bring up the judges again, and I want to point out something I think is important. Not every favorable judge has ruled in favor of the player. Joey Aguilar, he went to a Tennessee court judge, Tennessee alum. They didn't grant him an extra year. They said, I think you're done. I have no reason here to grant you an extra year. Trinidad Chambliss did. Charles Bediako, Alabama, was not granted an extra year by an Alabama alum as a judge. So it's not that like judges are corrupt or they're specifically looking for those alums of those schools. But at the same time, like, yeah, now there are some cases like this that like surprise you. This guy wasn't an alum of the school. This guy, we don't know. Like I said, there's no part of me that wants to say Cody Campbell paid the judge or paid someone in the court to make this happen. But like you said, it's going to be under the microscope. People are going to be talking about it. And an important factor to mention in this case versus any other cases, this was not this was not tampering. Tampering is a big deal. This was not buying Jim Harbaugh was suspended 3 games for buying a cheeseburger during a COVID dead period. Brendan Sorsby was suspended 2. So many guys and coaches and players have been suspended 3 to 5 games for much smaller things in the grand scheme of things. So when I'm saying like this is not tampering, this isn't buying a recruit a cheeseburger, this isn't like things that the NCAA used to be able to address. This is gambling on your own team, which will immediately raise questions, like you said, about integrity of the sport, but also about whether or not they're point shaving at the end of games, whether or not like they're actually being competitive, whether or not they're in it for the love of the game. And granted, I'll say this: in college football, the one saving grace for the top end players is if they don't have a problem like this, like Brendan Sorsby had with gambling, at least they are still trying to make the NFL. So if they get caught with it, yeah, maybe the irreparable damage the judge might call out is their NIL deal for that year. But the irreparable real damage is them getting caught for it and them doing it because you think the NFL wants to have a convicted is the wrong word, but like an accused and a admitted gambler on his own team as a rookie? Like you think that's how far do you think Brendan Sorsby's draft stock? Even imagine he goes off and wins the Heisman this year. I don't think he's won one in next year's draft. Like I don't think a team's going to be like I can trust to bring him in. And yeah, you're right. Like there's so many ways to push this envelope, push this conversation. It's just disheartening to me. Today that's this disappointing, it's disheartening, and it's a death nail for the NCAA in my eyes.
I agree. I think, like I said, in 3 years from now, when we're talking about the downfall of NCAA, in 3 years from now, when kids are in sports business classes writing case studies about the downfall of the NCAA, this will be something that will be talked about in multiple paragraphs on multiple pages, among other things, obviously. But this is probably going to be one of the main points. This is going to be the inability for the NCAA to govern its own sport is going to ultimately be the downfall. And like you said, the top athletes most likely are going to be the less likely offenders. But those lower athletes, this is the end of the road. What do you have to lose? I'll throw some money in this game. Even if it's in
Yeah.
favor of team, we're gonna kill these guys. I'll throw some money. Well, what kind of attitude is that? What kind of mentality is that? What kind of attitude are you creating in your locker room? It'll be very interesting to see how this moves forward. It'll be very interesting to see what coaches tell their players about gambling and how ADs handle it. There's been a lot of talks from schools about axing Texas Tech from their schedule, not scheduling them in the future. It'll be very interesting to see if they ostracize Texas Tech from the Big 12, so to speak, and these other schools, because I think they're going to get viewed upon very unfavorably. And we haven't even talked about recruits. If you're a recruit, what do you think of? What do you make of Texas Tech? Because now Texas Tech is definitely the villain. They're definitely a villain school now. Do you want to commit to a villain school? Maybe you have that villain, that chip on your shoulder mentality, and you like that. But there's probably be a lot of kids who it's kind of unnecessary tension. I don't know if I want to go to a school where nobody wants to play them and everybody's trying to kick them out of the conference and everybody's trying to, you know, blackball them from playing. It'll be interesting to see the ramifications. Last thing I'll say on it, Sark's got to schedule that game, man. Sark's
Yeah.
got to get him week 1 now, because now there's more fuel to the fire, a little more anger. If you're Sark, Joey's already said he would axe Abilene Christian for you, and he'll pay for it.
And he'll
Go play
axe
that game.
Texas State.
Yep.
He'll
Go play
axe
that
Texas
game.
State fourth. Yeah.
Go play that game.
The other aspect of that is I cannot believe that in 7 days span of time, when we were so, I think anti-Texas or anti-Sark is the wrong word, but we were praising Joey McGuire for like stuffing Sark's comments in a locker, basically. And in 7 days, the general public perception has flipped so much as such a villain in the state of Texas. And I think like Texas Tech fans are probably still smart enough. Like if this was Arch Manning, I don't want to say player's name, that's unfair. But if this was the Texas quarterback so and so, and this happened, how do you think Texas Tech fans would feel? They would be right in line with the rest of us. So it's gross to me. Any final words on this? There's a lot where we can go. Cody Campbell right now is on Twitter as we speak, like defaming the University of Georgia because of what their AD said. This thing's getting kind of ugly, and it kind of feels, how do I put it? It feels detached to me. Where I understand Cody Campbell's a billionaire. I understand he's a Texas Tech alum. I understand he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's doing a lot of great stuff for that university and for that football program. But fighting back with people who clearly have a problem with what this is doing in college football, and you're like the face of it, feels so detached from reality to me. It's like maybe you make a comment, but like, dude, stop saying anything. Let's just move on.
He's not helping himself. When people have accused him on social media and in articles for potentially paying off the judge, going on Twitter and starting arguments and starting yelling at people and defending what happened, it's not helping your case at all. A guilty man, this is something a guilty man would do, right? An innocent man would probably ignore it, would probably understand, this is a big deal. I probably should keep my mouth shut. But a guilty man might lose his cool, might lose his temperament, might try to defend these very interesting actions. So he's certainly not helping his case against any of the people that are accusing him of things. Again, I have no idea if he did or not, but he's certainly not doing a good job of making himself seem innocent.
So but we'll cap it off on this. I already read Nebraska's AD's text to his athletic department. Here's Georgia AD's email to his athletic department. Coaches and staff, based on recent developments, Georgia athletics will not schedule further Georgia athletics will not schedule further contests against Texas Tech until further notice. Please review your sport's current schedules and future scheduling plans. If you have any contests currently scheduled against Texas Tech or are actively engaging in scheduling discussions with Texas Tech, please notify your sports administrator as soon as possible so we can evaluate the situation and determine next steps. Effective immediately, no new contests should be scheduled against Texas Tech without prior approval from the athletics department. If you have any questions, please let me know. This is 1 week after, by the way, Joey McGuire hinted at Texas Tech saying the University of Texas is scared from playing them and previewing them potentially signing a home and home series against a major Division I program. And that was rumored to be USC and probably another school in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's already come out with the memo of like, don't schedule Texas Tech. And now Georgia's doing it. SEC coaches are leery of it. Big 12 coaches are leery of it. We'll see where this goes. Okay. Let's put a pin in that, Jace. Let's have some fun because this is my pre-wedding podcast. I want to be a little selfish here. All right, Jace. So this is a bad name for the game, but keep 3, cut 3. I have several categories here, and there are 6 options in each category. I'll read them out to you, and you have to keep 3 of them. Tell me why, and cut 3 of them.
Okay.
Which category? The categories are coaches, 2010s quarterbacks, 2026 preseason hype train, stadium vibes, traditions, and play style. What would you like to start with?
Let's start with some 2010 QBs. We had a lot of great QBs in the 2010s. So I'll start there.
2010 QBs. All right. As I'm trying to highlight this on our doc, your first option, Cam Newton 2010, Lamar Jackson 2016, Johnny Manziel 2012, Marcus Mariota 2014, Trevor Lawrence, his freshman year winning a Natty 2018, and Joe Burrow, that insane LSU season 2019. You got to pick 3 of these and cut 3 of them.
I'm going to stall while I figure out what my third keep is going to be. And maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, it's a good story here. 2 or 3 years ago, I had seen like on Twitter, someone post a ranking of the last like 20 Heisman QBs or something like that. And I thought the list was blasphemous. And I thought it was horrible. And people in the comments, I thought they were, I thought it was just terrible opinions all around. So I made an Excel sheet and I took all of the last 20 Heisman QBs at the time. And I took out the names. So I just named them QB A, B, C, D, all the way down. And then I put all of their stats, like generic stats, advanced analytics, team record, conference champion or not, national champion or not, that sort of thing. And I sent it to a bunch of my friends who are college football fans, and I had them blind rank all of these QBs. And then I took everyone's ranking, put it, did the analytics and figured out what the actual standings were. Some of them were very obvious. Joe Burrow, 2019, that's going to be my first keep. He was number 1. Blind ranks greatest Heisman season, and I think statistically up there with one of the greatest Heisman seasons. And for those of you who had the pleasure and the joy of watching that 2019 LSU team, they were just, there was like elite college football teams, all-time great college football teams, 2019 LSU offense. Joe Burrow leading the helm. He was accurate down the field. He was accurate short. He didn't have to use his legs much, but he was very effective when he did. He clearly had the IQ that was just a step above college football defenses. It looked easy for him. It doesn't hurt to have like 4 or 5 NFL wide receivers and tight ends. But Joe Burrow 2019, that is one of the greatest seasons I've ever witnessed, especially from an offensive perspective. So that's an easy keep for me. I'll give you my first cut. I'm going to cut Trevor Lawrence 2018. No disrespect. National champion. No disrespect to T-Law. He was phenomenal. It was a great season. I just think there are a couple other phenomenal all-time seasons on this list. My second keep is going to be 2014 Marcus Mariota. I'm going to acknowledge, yes, there's a little bit of bias in here. The Flying Hawaiian, that's my guy. I've been a lifelong Oregon fan. I went there. I love Marcus. I have like multiple Marcus jerseys from when I was like early middle school, high school days. Also, I do genuinely think this is one of the most underrated college Heisman seasons we've ever seen. In the blind rankings, so I had people rank them. I also forgot to mention, I had my friends rank them with the names and then blind ranking. With the names, I think people usually had him in like the 8 to 14 range. But in the blind ranking, he was unanimous top 3. Everyone had his season in the top 3. When you actually break down the stats and how he performed against ranked teams, he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable in the air, on the ground. He had the highlight reel and the highlight tape to back it up. He was just so protective of the football. It was a crazy efficient season. I'm going to take 2014 Marcus Mariota.
All right, you got 3 options left. You can only keep one of them. Cam Newton 2010, Lamar Jackson 2016, or Johnny Football 2012.
I'm really torn between all 3. I think all 3 had similar type seasons where they kind of carried a subpar team. So that was the hard part. Lamar was my most fun to watch on this list.
Yeah.
I remember kind of being on Lamar early in that season. He was electric. But I think I'm going to go with 2010 Cam Newton.
I think that's the only pick.
Yeah, he just felt like a man amongst boys. Whether or not him playing at Auburn was legal, who cares? He was freaking awesome to watch. Unfortunately, he did take a national championship from my Ducks. Jonathan Dwyer was down, but that's okay. I will take 2010 Cam Newton here.
All right, so your keeps are Cam Newton, Marcus Mariota, Joe Burrow. We'll revisit this if we got time. What's your next category?
Let's go with I kind of like that 2026 preseason hype train.
All right.
It's kind of fun to talk about.
So there's just random teams on here. I highlight them all green on our doc.
I'll get them all. Let's go.
So there are no, like, I guess there's no way to really judge this, but there's preseason hype trains. There are 6 teams on this list. You take 3 to end up for sure, I don't know, deep in the playoff or in the playoff at least. Miami Hurricanes, Indiana Hoosiers, Ole Miss Rebels, Oregon Ducks, Georgia Bulldogs, Ohio State Buckeyes.
You put together a really good list of 6 teams here. These are 6 of the top 10 teams in the country, undoubtedly going into next season, and rightfully so. I'll go with my first keep. I'm going to go with the Georgia Bulldogs. As we kind of talked about in the last pod, I like where they're at right now. I think Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, a lot of teams have had a big offseason in terms of drama, attention, hype, and that's going to put a lot of target on those backs. There's a lot of new coaches in the SEC this season, but there's one team in particular who's got a lot of roster continuity. There's a team that has a really good head coach, probably the best one in college football. And they're kind of flying under the radar because they haven't been involved in the drama, and they're kind of letting the other teams deal that one out. I really feel confident the Georgia Bulldogs will make the college football playoff and will win a game or two in it. So I will take the Georgia Bulldogs. That's the first ticket I'm purchasing for a train ride.
All right.
The second one, I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks. Again, call it biased or not, but I think Dan Lanning has done a really good job with this team. They have a lot of roster continuity as well, similar to Georgia. They retain a really good defensive line. Dante Moore is back. They have a very good wide receiver room. I think that's a team that's going to have a lot of success. I'll tell you 2 teams I'm going to cut here. I'm going to cut the Ole Miss Rebels, and I'm going to cut the Ohio State Buckeyes here.
Wow.
Yep.
That's surprising.
Ohio State's a tougher cut. I do believe in them, and I do think they're going to be phenomenal this season. I think they'll make a college football playoff. That feels inevitable. I don't know if it's voter fatigue, the same way people, kind of get into that with voting for MVPs. I think they're just so good so consistently that they're going to be so good again that I don't know if I see them growing, if that makes sense. They're going to just be elite again. So maybe that's just voter fatigue, like I said, but I'm going to cut them. And then Ole Miss, I do think they'll take a step back with Pete Gold. I think they had a really big chip on their shoulder in the college football playoff last season, and that helped aid beating Georgia in that phenomenal football game. But I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back. I think they have a target on their back. It seems like Pete Golding is not a well-liked coach among SEC coaches. I think teams are going to want to beat him. I also think they've lost a decent amount of talent over the last season. And I just think they had some magic in the playoff. I think they had a chip on their shoulder. They had a new coach. People didn't know how to game plan for that. Now they know how to. Now there's no more that chip on the shoulder is not quite there. I think that's a team that might take a step back from last season.
Okay.
Leaves me with 2 teams in very interesting spots. Both of them coming in with new QBs, the reigning champs, the Hoosiers, the team they beat, the Hurricanes. It's going to be hard for either of them to repeat that season, but give me the Miami Hurricanes. That's going to be my third keep. I really believe in Mario Cristobal, what he's done with their O-lines there, with the D-lines, and I'm a big believer in the Mensa and Tony connection. I think they have a very good running back room, and that's something that Mario Cristobal loves. And I just think in a weaker conference like the ACC, I feel a little bit more confident in Miami's ability to make the playoff and make some noise in the playoff. Not that I think Cignetti is the best coach in college football currently. However, I think that just the amount of roster turnover and the amount of talent that they lost, you might face a little bit of challenges just because of that.
Yeah. And what you said earlier before you started going through this is you complimented the list. I didn't grab like the 6 top projected teams. I was like, we got to grab teams that would make this hard for Jace. And I think that's what the rest of these categories will do. I didn't try to make this necessarily easy. All right, you kept the Miami Hurricanes, Oregon Ducks, and the Georgia Bulldogs. We might be revisiting that down the road too. Next category, Jace.
Let's go with stadium vibes. Let's move down. I'm curious to see where this one goes.
Stadium vibes. I guess it depends on what you consider like your rankings for these stadiums. But if you had to choose a game at one of these stadiums, and let's consider it a top 5 matchup. Let's consider it a big time game. Would
Okay.
you take LSU's Death Valley? Would you want to be at the Whiteout at Penn State? Be at Texas A&M Kyle Field, which is bizarre in every way. Camp Randall, the Swamp, Notre Dame with their touchdown Jesus. Those are your 6 options. Keep 3, cut 3, Jace.
I'm going to start with an immediate keep for myself. This is the LSU Death Valley. Every time
Yep.
you see it on TV, top 5 matchup night game, it looks unbelievably electric. I've had a few friends that have had the privilege of going. They've only spoken very highly of it. A big time SEC game like that feels like a must visit for me. And I know we haven't never been able to have the conversation. It's always at the end of our rundowns in the off season, but that is my number one, like, I want to see venue of a college football event as a
Yeah.
top matchup at LSU. So I'm going to keep that. I'm going to make 2 cuts right off the bat. I'm going to cut the Swamp and I'm going to cut Camp Randall.
Okay.
The Swamp this could be a recency bias for both of these teams. They just haven't had the football teams or the juice as fans to really entice me that much. I've been to Camp Randall twice and they do a decent job of showing out, but in both cases the stadium was not full and not super rowdy or ruckus. It was just kind of a solid football atmosphere. In the Swamp, I think also the last few years, just the team hasn't been as good. I think the energy's been down a little bit. That leaves me with the whiteout of Penn State, the Texas A&M, Kyle Allen craziness, and Touchdown Jesus. I'm going to take Touchdown Jesus. I would love to
Okay.
go to South Bend for a game. The stadium is just iconic. I think Touchdown Jesus is iconic. I've been to South Bend a time or two, but I've never been able to go to a game. Would love to make it in. And Notre Dame, I'm a big Marcus Freeman fan and believer. I think that would just be a really great atmosphere for a top 5 matchup, especially in like mid-November. It's 35 degrees. It's like Ohio State in there. Something like that would just be pretty legendary, I think, to go to. And it's just the history
Absolutely.
of Notre Dame would be cool. Leaves me with the whiteout and Texas A&M. So I've gone back and forth on this. The whiteout looks unbelievable on TV. And then Texas A&M with 109,000 or whatever it is, built way up, also looks unbelievable. Both scenarios, I would hate to be like an away fan just for probably the yelling
Yeah.
and screaming that would come at you. Give me the whiteout at Penn State. It looks unbelievable on TV, just like how loud it is and how cool it is, the sea of white like that. I would want to experience that firsthand. So give me the whiteout at Penn State. And
I'll
if
say
it's my
this.
team playing there, I like their odds of winning. So
Yeah, that's true. I'll say this. In reacting to this, LSU Death Valley is probably my number one. I want to experience a game there. There's definitely been stadiums that I've experienced, and I think there's more stadiums that you've experienced, but I think it's funny that both of our collective stadium that we want to go to is LSU. My number 2 is probably the Swamp, because I at least have heard is if they are in a top 10, top 5, top 12 game ever again, that place destroys teams, especially with the humidity and everything. I want to go
yeah,
watch a game there, and absolutely agree on the whiteout. Texas A&M kind of scares me. Camp Randall, I have to go if the team's good. If not, like I'd like to just go see Wisconsin. I'm not that interested. Notre Dame, yes, you're right, but like I think you're right. Like you want to go see it because of the history and because like you want to go see a game at Notre Dame. But like if I was part of the fans that were like singing Mo Bamba, I would have such a time. Like we make fun of them as outsiders, but it might be one of the coolest spectacles visually when you're watching on TV. Like it genuinely looks intimidating to you as a fan sitting at home on your TV, uh, and you're just only wondering how that feels to the players on the field, especially the opposing players. Somehow Oregon won there, but that's neither here nor there. All right, couple more categories. Where do you want to go?
let's go to the top here with some coaches.
All right,
Let's ruffle some
coaches.
feathers.
Ruffling some feathers. Number 1, Nick Saban. Number 2, Urban Meyer. Number 3, Kirby Smart. Number 4, Dabo Sweeney. Number 5, Pete Carroll, USC Pete Carroll. And number 6, Kurt Signetti. Very different array of coaches.
Are these in their primes, like at their peak, or is this just their
Yeah,
careers or today?
it's I guess I'll say it's not today. Like it's not
Okay.
like you're hiring them today, unless
Okay.
it's Kirby or Dabo or Kurt. But like it's take their if you were whenever you were going to be hiring these, or whenever you like Alabama hired Nick Saban from there on, whenever Ohio State and Florida hired Urban Meyer from then on, and then like you might have to do some foreshadowing with Kurt Signetti because they hired him 2 years ago. But like I guess this is how you interpret these
All
six.
right. I like that. I think I have a good answer. I'll start with the most obvious answer. I'm gonna cut Nick. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna keep Nick Saban. I think that's a given. Greatest
Yeah.
coach in college football history. Not much needs to be said more about that one. I'm gonna go with two cuts here. I'm gonna cut Pete Carroll.
Okay.
He had a great peak at USC, but there was a lot of controversy. He was not well received. Which, if I was an AD, here's how I'm viewing this. I'm an AD. Who do I want leading my program? There was a lot of controversy with Pete Carroll. He had some really high highs there, but also some lower lows. He left, but it was kind of like the
Yeah.
Michael Jordan leaving
He
basketball
escaped.
scenario. He escaped. Don't really want that association with my program. I'm gonna also cut. This is a tough one, but I'm gonna cut Urban Meyer. Similar reason why. Just a lot of controversy, really good at his high. But if I'm running a program, I do care about ethics, morals, integrity. I would want some of that there. And I just think Urban and Pete kind of sacrificed that a little bit for you. And I think we can win without the extracurricular. So I'm going to cut him as well. This is really difficult. Dabo Swinney, it's easy for you to fall in the recency bias. And as I'm thinking about him, it's easy for me to think about the last year or so, last 2-3 years with Dabo. But you also have to remember how much he built a program and how much he did with less,
Mm-hmm.
and how good that program was at its best. Kirby, he's had the resources to be successful, but he's also taken advantage of those resources and been incredibly successful. Kurt Signetti is the new upcoming coach on the block. He's just won the national championship in one of the more dominant seasons that we've seen in quite a while. This is the most difficult, keep cut I think I've had so
Yeah.
far. They're all three of these guys are pretty even. I feel like I could make an even case for or against all of them. I'm gonna keep Kirby Smart. I just think he's been such a staple in the sport. And yes, he hasn't been as dominant, maybe at his peak that Dabo or Kurt could be. But I
He
just
has
think
two natties.
he has two natties. He's been very consistent, and he seems like just a good leader. He always kind of
Yeah.
says the right things. He seems very safe as a coach. I never have to worry about what's going on with Kirby or football. I can just confidently know it's good stuff. The product's going to be good. So I'll go with Kirby, which gives me a really tough draw. Do I want the old or the new? I'm going to go Kurt Signetti, I think. I'm going to keep
Ooh.
Signetti as my third one. This could be a very hot take. I think he is going to be a phenomenal football coach. Whether it's at Indiana or not, I think he's going to win more national championships. His ability to game plan, his ability to get all his players and his coaching staff bought in on the same game plan is next to none. His ability to scheme game by game basis, his ability to predict what the other team is going to do and come up with a perfect counter game plan and then execute that is just next to none. We saw it last season. I don't think people realize how impressive it is to take over not even a dead, it was never alive
Yeah.
program and then flip it into a national champion. And it wasn't like he brought in 35 stars and the 30 best transfers. It was kids from JMU he brought over with them and extra guys in the portal he could find and kids left over at Indiana and turned him into a 16-0 national champion that ran Alabama out of the gym, ran Oregon out of the gym. They were just unbelievable. So I'm going to take Coach Sig.
That's very fair. All right, we got two more categories. I'm going to choose this one. Let's go to play style.
I like that.
So I guess once again, and I hope you've liked that. I haven't put real ways for you to actually judge this. It's whatever you prefer.
I like that. You've done a really good job with this. And as I'm reading these play styles, I'm really liking this category.
All right. That's why I wanted to get to that one, because traditions is kind of similar to stadium vibes, but play style. The first option is a quarterback with 4.4 speed. He has potential for a crazy play, potential for the mind-boggling mistake. The second play style, an average speed wide receiver who makes 50-50 balls 90-10. Third play style, a mistake-free, highly efficient pocket passer. He's not very fast. He has an average arm, but he doesn't make mistakes. Number 4, a shutdown corner. Takes away one side of the field no matter who he's playing, quarterback, wide receiver, whatever he is, he shuts that side of the field down. Number 5, a true 25 carry per game bell cow running back. Might not break free every time, but he's efficient, durable, and he's just a dog. Number 6, and this might just hit home for us, a kicker who can consistently hit 50-yard field goals. So There's 6 play styles here. You're a coach. Choose the 3 that you would want on your team. And you don't have to choose, like, if you already chose a quarterback, it doesn't mean you can't choose the quarterback again. You're just choosing, like, the play styles how you
Okay.
would want.
Because I have 3 that would be very complimentary. It's basically just Indiana football if you go 2, 3, 4. But I like this. Let's go for it. If you want wins, I think you cut option 1, a QB with 4.4 speed, potential for the crazy play, but potential for the mind-boggling mistake. I'm going to cut that because I want wins. However, if you are like a 6-6 team and you just want to sell tickets and have some hype, that's the choice. That's
Yeah.
Jalen Milroe. That's going to be he's going to be on ESPN. It's going to be a great recruiting tactic, but it's going to cost you a big game, and that's going to be frustrating. So I'll cut that, but that's a lot of fun. On the flip of that, I'm going to keep the mistake-free, highly efficient pocket passer for the exact opposite reason. When I'm trying to win games, I don't need the big flashy plays. They're fun. But at the end of the day, when you need to win national championships, you need game-winning drives against good teams. I need somebody that I can count on to make accurate throws to the right spot, make the right read, and not mess up, stay calm under pressure. So I'm going to keep the mistake-free, highly efficient pocket passer. Man, the kicker's enticing. That was a great addition because it's college football kicking is so hit or miss. And guaranteed 50 yards and in basically is such a gem to have in college football. But also in the inverse of that, in college football, you go for 4th downs so much more often because you can convert them at a much higher rate. So it's also, you have to balance how difficult is that. I'm going to leave that one undecided. That one's still going to get me here. I'm going to keep a shutdown corner that can take away one half of the field at any level of college football or of football. Sorry. That is incredibly useful. Richard Sherman did it at Stanford. He did it for the Seahawks for a long time. Omar Cooper did it last year. Brandon Finney's going to do it this year. Having that level of corner is just such a difference maker. Pat Surtain, we saw do it at Bama, and he's doing it in Denver. It's just a difference maker in college football, especially when you play against elite wide receivers. Man, these next ones are tough. I'll cut the true bell cow running back.
Okay.
I love Royce Freeman. That's kind of that's the first guy that came to my head when I read this. I love him. I love these guys, but I think Moneyball here, you can create 25 carries in the aggregate. I think you can get a guy or two. You can get a Jordan Davis and a De'Aaron Hill. Sorry for keep using the Ducks references. It's just top of the mind, unfortunately, for me. To the detriment of our non-Oregon buddies. But hey, you're learning more names. Well, I think you can create the bell cow in the aggregate, although they are very fun. Talk about a jersey sale. That's a great way to do that. Average speed receiver, those average speed receivers who make the 50-50 balls 90-10, it's the most maddening thing in the world to play against.
Yeah.
Because it feels so undeserving, and it feels like you have the stop, and then it somehow doesn't happen. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take the average speed receiver who makes the 90-10 catches. I am going to go full Indiana football. I've got my Eli Surratt / Charlie Becker. I've got my Fernando Mendoza. I've got my, please help me, defensive, or D'Angelo Pons. I want to play winning football if I'm a coach. And I think those 3 archetypes of players really, really push the envelope for winning. So do the other 3 guys, no doubt. But I think those 3 are just such fundamentally sound football. It keep you sane as a coach. Keep my hairs not gray for as long as possible because Farbod and I have the luscious jet black hair, you know?
Yeah. Well, I got a couple grays sometimes.
It's when you get married this time next week, you will be a husband. Those gray hairs will slowly go away. There's no more wedding planning. You can enjoy life with your grays going away. It'll be great.
Are my grays going away because I'm gonna lose hair? My
no.
My barber, actually, I got my haircut on Saturday. My barber, I told him this is my wedding cut. And he goes, I hope you have hair left for me after you get married to come back to me. And I'm like, what? I promise you I'll have hair. It just might go gray. All right. Let's say 5 minutes for the traditions one. Let's
go through it fast.
Let's wrap up our keep 3, cut 3. Your traditions, Jace, that you can choose for. The Oregon Shout song they play before the 4th quarter. Virginia Tech's Enter Sandman. Colorado's Ralphie running the field during the player intros. Wisconsin's Jump Around. The Iowa Wave to the Children's Hospital, which I put that in there because I feel like if you don't pick it. You're just a bad guy.
I
But
was gonna say,
and sailgating at Washington. So
yeah,
some of the more popular ones, some of the not. Keep 3, cut 3.
I got to keep the Iowa wave. Like you said, that's more of a brand saving move than anything. Kind of have to do that. It is wholesome. It is feel good.
It's
I do
really
think it
cool
keeps you
too.
humble. Yeah, I think it keeps
Yeah.
you humble as a human. Those are the types of things that give you good perspective on life, and I think that's important. So Iowa wave at the Children's Hospital. I'm also going to keep you know me. You know what I love so dearly, and I want it to mean something. The Virginia Tech Enter Sandman. Uh,
Yep.
love the song. It like nothing fires you up like that. And please, James Franklin, make it mean something. So I'm gonna keep that one. I'm gonna cut Colorado Ralphie running the field. I just don't think it's a big enough spectacle or enticing enough. Doesn't hype me up enough. I like things that kind of move you emotionally in
Yeah.
one way or the other. Sailgating at Washington, I'm also gonna cut. I same thing. It doesn't move me. It's really cool, but I just don't
Yeah.
think it moves me emotionally. Oregon shout and Wisconsin's jump around are kind of the same thing. It's the end, it's the end of the third quarter. Get people excited, get people all pumped up. I've done both of them. Wisconsin's jump around, really fun if you're energized and drunk. Really not fun if you are neither of those things. I'm going to keep the Oregon shout. Alma mater, it's near and dear to my heart. I'm acknowledging the bias, and I'm going to make the argument for it. No tradition in college football gets more players actually involved, not just doing the motions, but doing the emotions, feeling the emotions than Oregon shout does. And again, I like things that move people emotionally. I think Oregon shout really does have that feel for the players, and I want to bring that into my team. So I'll take the Oregon shout there.
I'll say this: the one I didn't put in there was Ohio State dotting the I. When Oregon lost to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl by a ton 2 years ago, and I was at that game, and half the stands was Ohio State fans, half the stands was Oregon fans. So they gave both fan bases a chance to do their tradition. I was like, oh, the Ohio State one's pretty cool. Like if I was an Ohio State fan or alum, I'd be loving this. But I I don't think choosing shout over jump around is a bias thing. I mean, if you genuinely think about it, no disrespect to Wisconsin, I've heard jump around at soccer games. I've heard jump around at Angels baseball games. I learned shout when I went to Oregon. Like
Yeah.
that's unique to the school. And that's unique to the program. And I'm sure jump around's fun. I'm sure it's a great environment, especially when Wisconsin's doing well. But I'm mostly in agreement with you. For me, you and I are so similar. Enter Sandman is like if I could make one wish for college football other than to fix its problems that we've talked about today and like some of the other stuff, Enter Sandman is probably like I want that tradition to mean something. I want that tradition to we've all done the thing of going and watching a YouTube video of Virginia Tech from like 2002 or whenever it is. The footage is grainy, but you see how everyone's jumping the song. The camera's bouncing because the camera operators are just being moved by the stadium going up and
Yeah.
down. It's like they can't help it. Like it's not like they're unstable. It's like the stadium itself is moving, and then all of a sudden the team runs in and like I also baseball fan. Mariano Rivera was still playing during my like peak as a young baseball player. That was his song. Like I want that to mean something. And then obviously the Iowa Children's. I think we had the same answers for that one. All right. So we started the show. We had a lot to say about Brendan Sorsby. Now we had a keep 3, cut 3. We won't revisit them because we still went a little long. Next week for Flag for Discussion, diehard listeners. By the way, last week, thank you for all the downloads, whoever you were. There were like 83 in one day. Reach out to us. We'd love to chat. But next week, I will be getting married. There will be a best of Flag for Discussion in your timeline, in your feed, dropping next Monday, June 15th. Because Jace will be at the wedding. I will be at the wedding, and we will not want to be recording a podcast as much as we love this the day after or even the day of the wedding. And I hope you understand that at home. Jace, you got anything else?
It was a great show. And ideally, we won't chat for 2 more weeks, obviously, about college football. Maybe we get a Texas Tech matchup in the next 2 weeks that we can talk about. Maybe we get some more clarification on the future of the NCAA. But now we got 2 weeks to accumulate some more offseason.
Oh, yeah. Alrighty. Well, this is the last time you'll see me as an unmarried man. I mean, hopefully. Who knows how next week?
I'll hope everything goes well. I'll do my best to keep things on track.
Yeah, Jace, you're in charge. You're protecting me. All right. Before I say anything that'll get me in trouble with my lovely fiance, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you are following us on all the socials. Flag for Discussion spelled out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. On YouTube, subscribe to us at Flag for Discussion spelled out. We're on Twitter at F4Discussion, TikTok at Flag4Discussion. This has been a blast. I'll see you guys. I'll see you, Jace, on Thursday. I'll see everyone else in a couple weeks. Best of episode next week. Thank you for listening. Flag for Discussion.